Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Star Wars The Force Awakens discussion video. This is going to be my discussion video on Rey, our main character in The Force Awakens, and definitely my favourite character coming out of the movie. And it's just so interesting to look at her journey, kind of, I suppose, just in terms of the marketing, that the marketing very much led you to believe that kind of Finn was the main character, Rey was the main supporting character. But by the end of The Force Awakens, it's actually the opposite. Rey is the important Force sensitive main character who's going to get Luke Skywalker back. Finn is the kind of more supporting character who's kind of left in a kind of odd position at the end of the movie. So that's a really interesting idea, and it explains a lot of the kind of stuff right now, like the fact that Rey, it kind of seems like she doesn't have a lot of toys on the shelves, but at the same time, a lot of the spoilers in this movie revolve around her. She's such a mysterious character coming out of the movie, but she was also in terms of like what you know about her going into the movie versus at the end, she is the character who's the most different from then, because obviously, like, look at her Disney Infinity figure. It's her with her staff, and in the game, she doesn't use the lightsaber at all. Except for like a cutscene at the very end, establishing that does happen. But it's not like her character suddenly changes after you finish the game and she suddenly has the lightsaber. She still just uses the staff. That it is a spoiler that some of the biggest moments for Rey as a character have the lightsaber and stuff like that. So it's an odd position for like a character to be in, and that like she's very much a fan favorite character, but there's so much spoilers revolving around some of her key scenes that it's kind of hard for them to like over merchandise her like really quickly. But either way, let's move past the merchandising stuff and like I really liked her. Like Daisy really did an amazing job at acting this character and bringing this character to life. Just this, she's so likable straight away. You really understand her situation on the planet, that she has to do really hard work to survive. You see how capable she is straight from the start. She has mechanical skills. She can talk. She can speak droid speak. She can defend herself with her staff. She is quite agile, able to climb up to the top of Star Destroyers and stuff like that. And we later find out she's a good pilot and stuff like that. So she's very skilled, and you kind of wonder like, why does she stay on this planet if this is the case? And it's a book like this, Before the Awakening, the Rey story, like establishes a moment when she found this ship at some point, repaired it, and could have basically left the planet on it. She learned how to pilot it well enough, but two people who helped her kind of fix it actually took the ship and left just as she was about to sell it to Unkar for like portions to last her forever, basically. And that's the thing that kind of is holding her back. That for all those marks that she's made on the wall and where she lives, that's the number of days she's been on this planet just waiting, just doing this work just to wait another day longer for her parents to come back. That's what's holding her to this planet. That's what's holding her back from really benefiting, I suppose, overall from all of her skills. And you understand why she does that, but at the same time, there's so many marks there. We later find out it's been like 10 years effectively. Before Maz says it, we kind of know that she's waiting in vain, that her parents may have had a plan to come back in a year or two, but something went wrong, that they're not coming back anymore. And it's sad when she has to accept it and Maz says it to her, but over the course of her journey from like the start of this movie to the end, she comes into contact with so many people who do care for her, which is another thing that she like experiences in this movie. She goes from having to do everything on her own, and she's capable enough to do that, but this movie is kind of about her, for pretty much the first time since her parents, finding other people who care about her and she can depend on. And that's a really interesting arc for her to go on, in the sense of that she is the character that we experience this whole movie with, that it's like when the other characters mention like Han Solo, the Millennium Falcon, Luke Skywalker, she's the one who lights up and goes like, Luke Skywalker. I thought he was a myth and stuff like that, and she's like, this is the Millennium Falcon. You're Han Solo, the smuggler, and 14 parsecs. Like, those are some of the most well acted parts of the character. Just seeing her come to life, where she's usually like, just in terms of her kind of, she's fairly serious going about her usual business, and there's a sense of like, okay, I'm doing this, I need to survive, but I don't want to be here forever like that old woman across from me also cleaning this thing. I want to leave this planet like that ship I'm looking at. I wish I could be a pilot and have an X-Wing helmet, be part of a resistance, or like these legends I've heard about. There's so many little things with this character that show you that she wants and is aware that kind of she's more important, but she cares so much for her family and hopes that they come back that it ultimately ends up kind of holding her back. And it takes all these people being introduced, her being kind of just thrust into this situation for her to really find her destiny. And that is a great arc for this character. Even moments like when we go to a different planet, she's the one most in awe of just seeing Takodana, this forest planet with a castle on it, because she's not used to anything like that. She's almost in tears at how beautiful this looks, whereas Han Solo is just kind of like, yeah, it's a different planet, cool, but he then like kind of realizes that, wait, this is like the first time she's seen anywhere except Jakku in so long. So it's a great character in terms of just learning everything as we learn it, and she's kind of the character that we follow, kind of represents us a little bit. So it's really well done. But yeah, things really obviously change once BB-8 comes into play, and I like that they showed that moment where, like, even though I mentioned this, like she wanted to sell that ship for portions, she's given a chance by Unkar to sell BB-8 for portions, but she doesn't, because deep down she kind of realizes that, like, it's not mine, it's not my droid. This droid has something it needs to do. There's something classified important about it. In my conscience, I can't just sell him. And she helps him and then runs into Finn. And the thing with Finn and her relationship that's so well done throughout this movie is that they both really benefit from kind of being around each other. For Finn, it's having someone like he's only with Poe for really like the opening scene and then a few bits at the end. Rey is the main character that Finn interacts with, and so she ends up being the main character that treats him like a person, not just a serial number. And admittedly, a lot early on, it's kind of like she thinks he's like a big person in the resistance, and she has these stories about the rebellion, the resistance, and kind of sees him in the same way as kind of not as big as, but similar to like a Han Solo, like a Luke. But over time, she just kind of it becomes this situation where she just learns to depend on him and see him as a friend, and becomes one of Finn's first true friends. For Rey, with Finn, the main thing is just that he cares about her. He wants to protect her and stuff like that, and she's not used to that. She's used to having to always defend for herself because no one else will stand up for her. So you can see how kind of self-independent she is when, like, Finn realizes kind of first that something's going on, and he kind of grabs her hand to kind of pull her away, and she's just like, no, I can do this myself. But ultimately she realizes when he kind of gets kind of blown aside, trying to help her dodge these TIE fighter blasters, that he is just trying to help her. It's not any sort of like trying to grab her for any other reason. And she offers her hand to him to help him up, and then when that happens, he asks her, like, are you okay? And this is an important line, and I think in the Force Awakens novelization they make it very clear that for Rey, this is basically like the first time she's ever been asked by anyone, are you okay? And that's very telling that that's the case. Like, you can see the pause. There's like, is that what you just asked me? Yeah, I'm okay. and she's so shocked that someone else cares about her, having only met her for like a couple of seconds. And so from there, their just friendship continues. They bond in the kind of combat situation with the TIE fighter. They're obviously both similar age. They're both kind of just realizing kind of the freedom of not being bound to like the First Order, not being bound to Jakku, and potentially helping someone else with a mission. And that's what's so interesting about the main plot of this movie as it goes on, because it's Poe's mission, but Rey and Finn, two kind of unrelated characters, end up being the one to kind of carry out most of it, and how they kind of bond and come together about that, and how very quickly they both become very protective of each other and have moments where they both save each other in different points. To the point where when Finn kind of goes to leave at Maz's castle, Rey is very upset about it because she sees this as another kind of friends abandoning her, like her kind of parents left her there, and she gradually comes to accept that they're not coming back. Like the two people that helped her build the ship in this book left her just as she was about to sail the ship. He's also leaving her, and it's so emotional because of that, but also because she thought he was, I suppose, different and was going to stay. And so, you know, later on in the movie, when she is captured and Finn, Han, and Chewie come back for her, it's a big moment because she didn't expect anyone to care enough about her to come after her on Starkiller Base and stuff like that. So you get these moments where she just discovers, I suppose, how loyal and true friendships some people can be to you, and that's a great thing as the movie kind of goes on, to see her kind of, you know, capable enough to like get herself out of most situations on her own, but have the help to fully make all this stuff happen from other people. It's very well done. Some of the other important scenes with her are, well, of course, in Maz's castle, the whole lightsaber scene is very good, because see, this is the moment where her kind of character changes. She's important, she's skilled, but you don't think she is the most important character until this call starts to happen. She hears this girl crying. She goes downstairs. This box calls to her. She opens it up. It's a lightsaber. We recognize it as Luke's lightsaber. She just sees it as a lightsaber. She touches it, and she's suddenly in these memories from the other movies. These moments of like Luke versus Vader in Episode 5. She's seeing the kind of moment where the Jedi were killed by Kylo and the Knights of Ren. She is seeing the moment she was left on Jakku and like told to wait. It's this moment that like this lightsaber, like Obi-Wan, the line from Obi-Wan says, you know, you're making your first steps into a larger galaxy or something like that. That this lightsaber is meant to be the thing that finally guides her into what she was meant to be doing. Not waiting on Jakku, actively taking a part in helping the balance of the Force, the galaxy going forward. And the thing here is that like she rejects it. Like Maz kind of comes up to her, kind of explains it more to her, makes it clear to her that it's been so long, you know deep down, I can see it in your eyes, they're not coming back. But there is someone who can come back, Luke, and Rey acknowledges this and can kind of realize the importance of him going forward, but she still runs away from it because she was so afraid. She still feels some sort of, I suppose, comfort in the fact that she could just go back to Jakku and wait and hope, even though she kind of knows. So, it's definitely an emotional journey as she just kind of goes from a fairly simple life, hard but simple life, to suddenly being thrust into all these crazy situations, like take this lightsaber, help the fate of the galaxy, fight in this big battle. It's a big decision she's kind of put into positions of having to make. All the while, like, you know, she's run into Han and she's kind of come to see him as a father figure. He's offered her a job, but she can't quite go. But you get the sense that between like that happening and the vision scene, she's kind of willing to accept to some extent that happening. So, you know, and obviously her relationship with Finn, that being a great friendship for her, but then him wanting to run away. Lot of stuff happening to her. So when she's captured by Kylo, she's kind of at her lowest point in the movie, and you can almost like kind of forgive her for potentially like not having the will to fight Kylo's mind probe, but she still does. And that's an important scene as well, because it's one of the first times you like see her like actively kind of use the Force properly. It's not just like the Force kind of giving her in enhanced reflexes, like kind of we've seen Anakin and Luke use in the past. Um, this is or like giving her the right moment to close the door to help Finn. This is her like actively using a Force kind of ability, and it makes sense. Kylo has to use extra Force to probe into a Force user, and that leaves the door open for her to counter probe him. But what he sees in her head is interesting, that she has come to see Han as a sort of father figure, that she at times has dreamed about this island on this ocean planet, which we later find out at the end of the movie is kind of retroactively revealing that she has been having these Force visions about her future, that her destiny lies on this planet. And so when we go to that planet, we go to an ocean planet and an island, we know that she's where she needs to be. Um, so that's really well done, and like they very much set up the conflict between Kylo and Rey here, in that Rey is this character who is discovering the Force, the light side of the Force, and is becoming exceptionally powerful, whereas Kylo is trying to become a master of the dark side, but it's not quite working. And it's an interesting dynamic from that perspective. Um, but obviously, yeah, it's at this point, they all come to save her, and again, it's a big moment when she gets out on her own for the most part, but is kind of, like she's stuck. Everything's kind of hard because she's just on her own trying to get past all these stormtrooper patrols. So when she meets up with them, instantly it changes. It's a lot easier. She's around friends, people who care for her, and things can happen a lot easier, and it's well done. But just as everything is kind of going right, they're about to escape, she sees Han die, and I don't know what they're really going to do going forward with this. Is it potentially going to be one of those moments where she feels such anger towards Kylo for killing this person she cared about so much, that it's going to be the one thing that potentially leaves her open to the dark side potentially taking over? That the next time she sees Kylo, whatever training she gets from Luke might fall away, and she'll give in to her emotions because of what he did to Han? Or will she be strong enough to keep that down? I don't know. Will they even go for any sort of a light side dark side conflict within Rey, because they're already kind of doing that in Kylo? But there's always the potential. But either way, that's not in this movie what they're going for. There's no real hint about like Rey dark side stuff. Maybe there's the idea like, what would she have done to Kylo if the planet hadn't split in two and they've been like really separated? She couldn't get to him. Would she have finished the job? We're not really sure. And so like after that, there is a level of anger for sure. That when he confronts them in the forest, she fires at him and kind of charges him basically. Knocked out, Finn has to kind of fight to protect her while she's unconscious. And I like how she wakes up in the middle of the fight, basically just in time to see him go down wielding that lightsaber, protecting her. That he took the lightsaber because she didn't, and in a way, I suppose for her not going ahead with what she was meant to be, what her destiny is, led to Finn being injured, and so she accepts it at this moment to protect Finn while he's down, and takes the lightsaber. And her kind of force grabbing it from Kylo's grasp, wonderful scene, definitely one of the best in the entire movie. The music plays, it's going to happen, but until the shot pans over and you see her holding it and igniting the lightsaber, it doesn't fully register. And so it's so good when she ignites it and the battle starts. Now, this is where you know, I suppose at this point I'll bring up the whole idea that a lot of people have brought up that, like, did they overdo how powerful Rey is in such a short space of time? For the most part, no, I don't think. In that, like, I'm perfectly fine with her being a good mechanic. She's had so much experience just searching for parts, cleaning them, putting them together to make them worthy for Unkar to get the most amount of portions. That makes sense. She's good enough to know droid speak and stuff like that. That's fine. This book establishes she, at some point, basically managed to put together a simulator, a flight simulator from parts, and that's how she knows how to fly for the most part. That's cool. The problem is the Jedi techniques, the lightsaber combat, force techniques. For the most part, again, not too big of a problem. In that I don't have a problem with her countering the force probe because he goes in too far, she goes in the back door. That's kind of, it almost just happens by default because he doesn't realize initially she's a force user, and so it just surprises him and she gets in. In force power wise, I think the problem I have is the Jedi mind trick scene. That it was a little. I get the sense of, like, in the writing of that scene, it was just this sense of, okay, we're going to have this kind of funny scene, but it also represents Rey becoming more powerful. And they didn't quite think it through in terms of how it links in with the training of other characters, in the sense of, okay, she fails the first couple times and gets it right at the end. That's fair enough. The problem is that she basically, it almost feels like she masters it in the space of those 2 minutes. The real problem with the scene I actually have is just a little bit at the end. She gets him to leave, and as he's just about to walk out of sight, she says, "And drop your weapon," and he does it. I would have preferred if she kind of had made the mistake of not thinking it fully through, and he left with the weapon, just showing you that it's not perfect yet. She's powerful enough to get the gist of the technique very quickly, but she temporarily lost concentration and couldn't make the last bit, the last order, fully connect. I think that would be the way to do that scene, like, really perfectly. Because otherwise, like, yeah, it's the big kind of joke at the end of the scene that she kind of forgets, and then it's just like, oh, and drop your weapon, and he does it. But I think the logic should have made more sense than going for the joke. So there's that. Then the lightsaber fight. Obviously, you've probably heard my previous videos. Not the biggest fan of the choreography in the fight. There's a lot of reasons for that, in that it's a skilled lightsaber duelist in Kylo. At least he's had a lot of training, going up against two people who don't have that much training. They have certain combat training in using melee weapons, but not specifically using a lightsaber. So they're at a disadvantage. They don't really know the techniques, the forms of lightsaber combat, so it was never going to be a pretty fight in either of them. But I still think that there could have been a little bit more. They could have done it a little bit better. But in terms of the Rey-Kylo fight, early on it works perfectly fine, in that she tries to attack initially and he just very quickly takes control, and she's completely on the defensive, retreating backwards, using her agility to her advantage, the terrain, running away from him more than confronting him. That's fine. It's the point where they could come to the saber lock on the edge of the cliff, and he tells her, I could train you how to use the Force. You need a teacher, and she just suddenly remembers, like, I have the Force. I can connect to that. That might make me stronger. It's the moment after that I kind of have some slight issues with in terms of the lightsaber combat, in that I'm fine with her having a temporary burst of power with her big awakening in the Force, but I think the problem I have is her completely, utterly out-dueling him. I get he's injured, I get he's not fully trained, but he has had so much more training than she has, and so her just tapping into the Force and just being able to out-duel him and really, like, dominate him in the end. I had a little issue with that because it didn't just increase, like, Rey's power and show you how powerful she is. It did more to just really diminish Kylo than anything else. I don't have a major problem with it, but I definitely, from first time to fourth time viewing the movie, I had an issue with it kind of every time it happened. In that, to me, the way the scene should have played out, they're in the saber lock. She connects to the Force. The temporary burst of kind of energy power allows her to, use her strength, get out of the saber lock. He's kind of temporarily blown back. She slices up, gives him the cut that he gets, the major injury that he gets in the fight with Rey. She then uses the Force, kind of not too, I suppose, fairly bluntly uses the Force, and Force pushes him away from her into a tree, and that ends the fight. Just this really quick rush of power that allows her to temporarily injure and blow him away, rather than the kind of protracted, outduel you, slicing the arm, slicing the leg, kick him down, walk around him. He gets back up, slice across the face. Just real domination. I didn't quite like that. I do think it should have been more of a really just burst of energy, because ultimately what the fight was meant to get across was that Rey, in just these little moments of connecting to the Force on the light side, could utterly defeat Kylo, and a Kylo that should be more powerful in the dark side, having killed his father. And it was meant to really show him the power of the light side, that it can make even a severe novice very powerful. But I just think they went a little bit too far in terms of the scales of power, just going Kylo's here and now he's just down here, and then Rey is just way up there. There was a way, as I explained, to do it and get the same points across without it being so you almost go into the next movie thinking if Rey can beat him already, both of them getting training, Rey's just gonna win by default, kind of thing. And a lot of people will bring up as a defense for this, just that but Rey had training, she used a staff and stuff like that. But there's a huge difference between using a giant staff that's not a plasma weapon that you can hold at any point on it. You can hold it right at the end and have it be this giant thing. Just look at it here. If this was Darth Maul's lightsaber that she was holding, she technically would be holding one of the blades with her hand there. So there's a big difference between going even from just a saber staff to a single lightsaber, and it seems like Rey really only has combat training with a staff rather than a sword, let alone a lightsaber, which has very different kind of physics to it than a standard sword. So there was some slight issues, I think. I very much hope the lightsaber fights are much improved in the later films. It's one of the only things that I kind of consistently come out of the movie always feeling one of the slight letdowns of this movie was the quality of the lightsaber fights. Emotionally, I think they worked in the sense of Finn's injury, Rey's comeback, her defeat of Kylo. It was just the way they did it, the choreography of how they did it, I wasn't the most happy with. So it's less of a problem with Rey's character and more with just the production, how they did it. In that I don't think we're meant to believe coming out of this that Rey's a lightsaber master now, or a Force master. Just that her awakening made her more powerful, and if she can get the training to control all of this effectively and use it when she wants to, she can be extremely powerful. Which leads us into, I suppose, the final few kind of moments of the movie. She and Chewbacca help Finn aboard the Millennium Falcon. They get him out. They return back to the Resistance base, and you get that moment where Rey returns to the base. She and Leia hug, and it's just a nice moment between, I suppose, the person Rey, not even though they haven't had a scene really before together, has come to see as somewhat of a mother figure. Their connection to Han, they're both Force sensitive. I suppose Leia can sense that in Rey to some extent, and she probably knows just from the fact that she has this lightsaber. Will probably have known what happened with the duel with her and Kylo, that she's involved in this. She's going to be important to her family going forward if she can bring Luke back. So it was just kind of a nice moment where it was just the start of hopefully a really interesting relationship, in that Leia is kind of entrusting Rey, who is now kind of basically part of the Resistance, at least friendly with the Resistance, of really being their next hope. She's putting her hope in Rey that she can bring Luke back, and that can really turn the tides. And win the day for the Resistance. Which leads us obviously to the final couple of scenes, Rey becoming captain of the Millennium Falcon, and then her meeting with Luke. And I really like the whole thing with her becoming the captain of the Falcon, because they set it up throughout the entire movie with her relationship with Han. They were both, basically saying the same things about the ship in terms of how to fix it, knowing the like little idiosyncrasies of the Falcon, like the specific things it does that no other ship does. No other ship does, and just the father daughter relationship that sort of developed there. He could sense that she would make a really good member of the crew, potentially someone he could entrust the ship to were he to go. Which, we don't see it, but perhaps there was a moment where he said something like that to Chewie. Clearly, they talked. Chewie must have said to Han that he does like Rey, but it's just such a great moment that when Han does die, I suppose Rey would just assume Chewie must take over as captain of the ship. So when she goes on board to go after Luke, you get the sense she's expecting to just sit in the co-pilot seat and like she'd be happy with that, to become the co-pilot on this ship. But the fact that Chewie is already sitting there, and he basically is kind of just gesturing, like, you're the captain now. He kind of sets up everything, preparing it for her. She's the captain, and she sits down and is just so happy that this is what she was meant to be. Like, that they very much were setting up the similarity between her and Han, and that she is the next captain. And it's a nice thing with Chewie that I suppose to some extent, he was also aware of how similar she was to Han, that ultimately she will make the best decisions for this ship. And if Han trusts her with the ship, Chewie can also be the co-pilot for this girl. That was just a very nice relationship with the way it developed. They didn't do anything overly fancy with regards to them having a lot of scenes together and like showing the relationship develop, but just that in the same way that Chewie is best friends with Han, it's getting there with Rey with only a couple of scenes together. I really like that. Which leads us into the last big scene in the movie with Rey. They obviously go to the planet from the map where they found out Luke is. I think they've kind of revealed the planet's called like Octo or something like that, like AC hyphen like TO or something like that. But I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure where I heard that from. But either way, it's the ocean planet. It's got the island on it, just like Kylo read in her mind. So this is where she's meant to be, and it's such a great scene because the really memorable piece of music from the soundtrack, the Jedi Steps, plays. She walks up slowly. She kind of takes in the island. They build to the reveal of Luke, and then even once you see Luke from behind, they still build to the reveal of like the hand, his face uncovered, the hair, and like it's a really memorable scene from the movie. And for Rey, it's early on you see that like she's like thought Luke was a myth, and you definitely get that sense from her here that she is meeting the legend more so than the Millennium Falcon, Han, Leia. This is Luke Skywalker, the Jedi. And they definitely play up how powerful this scene is. He turns around and looks at her and is kind of like, he's not like shocked or confused or anything like that. He's just like, interesting, someone's found me, and it's not Kylo Ren. It doesn't appear to be someone from the First Order or the Empire. It's just this girl, and I assume he can sense that she's powerful in the Force. Very powerful. But then it's the moment when she puts her staff on her back, she takes out the lightsaber and just offers it to him, like wants to hand it back to him. And his expression changes from like, who are you kind of sort of thing to, oh, like the lightsaber has come back. This girl who's powerful in the Force has it. Things are changing, like this is a big moment, like this may mean my return, the fact that the lightsaber I lost so long ago has finally returned to me. It's a big scene. It's hard to really fully interpret what's going through Luke's head, what's going through Rey's head, but for Rey, it's just a kind of a hope, like holding out the lightsaber that she hopes he will like accept it and come back and train her or something like that. It's for her, it's very much this sense of like she needs this. Her parents aren't coming back. She can't just stay with Finn and them. This is where she needs to be. She just hopes that he will make it, kind of fulfill the other side of it, his part. And then from his side, like obviously we don't know the full story with Rey, but that just the idea of the lightsaber, her returning it to him and handing it back is a big moment. And who knows what they'll do afterwards with this scene. Like, I think everyone's probably going to be a little bit disappointed if they don't, in episode 8, show us what he first says to her. What immediately happens following the end of episode 7. Like, if they just cut to like a couple of weeks, even a day after this scene, it's going to be a little bit like, what? Because I think we really need to see, like, does he take the lightsaber or what? What's the first thing he says to her? What's the first thing she says to him? This is going to be a big relationship going forward. How does it really start? But yeah, that's about it. Like, I think the only thing other thing I need to cover is that, the romance. Are they doing any romance stuff with Rey? Potentially, maybe. It wasn't really a big part of the movie at all. I think definitely fans interpreting little scenes make it bigger than it actually is in the movie. I think Finn likes Rey, that's absolutely clear. And I think to some extent she likes him, but her focus for the most part of the movie is elsewhere. Just like I think with Finn, it eventually is also kind of elsewhere. But the Finn-Rey relationship is such an important one for both of them. It's just very clear that maybe it will develop into a romance at some point. I think if there's any setup for a romance, it's most clear with those two. Though, will they go for it? I'm not fully sure. But they've laid a little bit of groundwork there. Right now, they've just absolutely set it up. It's a very close friendship there. Two people that are very important to the other one. But yeah, Rey, very interesting character. As I said, I'm going to cover her in 2 videos. This one's primarily just her in the movies, the stuff we actually know about her. The next video, which will probably be tomorrow or Thursday, will be theories about Rey. I'll discuss the whole thing about who I potentially think her parents are, if they're even important, and where I think she'll go in episode 8, and so on. Like, all the speculation will be in the next video. This one was just about covering her in the movie, which, again, my absolute favourite character. The only things that aren't just 100% positive about her are just like, they maybe went a tiny bit overboard with regards to like, so quickly developing certain skills for her, but I feel once they do some training with Luke, it'll all be made very clear to us. And again, maybe she's had training in the past, and is just rediscovering it here. There could be an explanation down the road. So even my little issues may not be an issue at all come new information. But that's been my video on Rey. Thanks for watching this video, and bye.